Hi there. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk over some of the material that we covered in the lecture on the body and embodiment, including some very preliminary feedback on the contemporary workforce assignment. So that's the annotated bibliography. So I'll start off with some comments on the annotated bibliography. I think the main thing that I would say, which would apply really to any piece of coursework and your dissertation that you're doing throughout the remainder of this final year, is to read the assignment brief carefully and to follow it. That includes things like making sure you're submitting to the appropriate bit of Turnitin. Are you meeting the word count? But more importantly, really, is making sure that you're reading the assessment criteria and what it is the actual aim of the piece of coursework is. So I've obviously not had a chance to read all the piece of coursework yet, they're only submitted on Friday. But what I have looked at, I've seen some really good pieces of work. I've seen assessments that have really made an effort to link the underpinning theory. So for example, performativity from Judith Butler, with each of the papers that they've been looking at. What I'm really struck by is the effort that all of the assignments I've looked at have gone to A, pick an interesting topic, and B, to really ensure that each of the 10 papers are related back to that topic. So I'm really impressed with people's ability to identify the literature. That's fantastic, and it bodes really well for your dissertation and also for your next piece of assessment. Looking at the course structure for contemporary workforce, I think it's fairly obvious that we have 6 lectures left if you take into account this week, and the final exam will have 6 questions on it. So I'll leave you to interpret what that means in terms of the structure of the final assessment. So in yesterday's lecture we covered the body and embodiment, and I just wanted to go over what some of the key points are for this. What I would start off by saying is, if you decide to answer a question on embodiment or the body for the final exam for this, you don't just need to draw on the material from the lecture on the body. If you want to do well, you need to draw across the entire course. So obviously a lecture on the body at work would also be relevant to the material from disability. It might also be relevant to the material from the lectures on gender and race and ethnicity, migration, work-life balance, LGBT experiences and intersectionality. So it's really important that you remember that although the question might be about the body, that doesn't mean that the only material you need to look at is the material from that particular lecture. So one of the main things that came up in yesterday's lecture is that the vast majority of research around human resource management and also human resource management practice assumes that human beings do that work somehow in a way that is disembodied. In other words, we don't look really at the role of the body in the workplace. Sometimes we do look at it, and usually where it is looked at, it's looked at from a health and safety perspective. So think, for example, things like accidents at work, disability, occupational health. So that means things like musculoskeletal disorders, stress, those kind of things. But the other area where the body at work starts to become considered in both human resource management policy and practice is actually around pregnancy. One of the issues I raised in the lecture yesterday is that there is an increasing interest, both within research but also actually within human resource management practice, around fertility treatment and the impact that might have on what organisations can do. So, for example, do you allow employees time off to attend hospital appointments? Most employers would say yes. But there's other issues around fertility treatment that might be relevant. What happens if somebody has to go through in vitro fertilisation? There's lots of issues associated with that that might affect somebody at work. Now, of course, the other side is that for some people, their body is their work. And later on today, I'm going to put up on Vision the photos I took from my notes on the board from the lecture. And We talked about, for example, if somebody is a masseuse, or they're a model or an actress or a sex worker, then their body is their work. So that's another area where the body starts to become important at work, but again, it's neglected in terms of policy making, management practices, and the literature. So we covered a few important studies. The really key study is the Warhurst et al. Study. And Warhurst's work was looking at what is called aesthetic labour. And Warhurst argued that with a move towards a service economy that we've had in a country like the UK, that human capital, so your degree, your qualifications, your skills, as they're traditionally defined, are not as important, or maybe of growing importance, is so-called soft skills. And managing our bodies is one of those soft skills. Now, that could be managing our accents, it could be trying to sort out scruffy hair, all those kind of things are all aesthetic labour. So you must read the Warhurst study. He's done a number of studies around aesthetic labour. The main study I described and set out in the lecture is a Glasgow-based study about the service industry, for example, hotels and restaurants and retail. We also looked at Father Christmas. What does it mean to embody Father Christmas? So that's another important study by Hancock, and I'd suggest you have a look at that. It's quite a fun story. It has a few little sad bits in it in terms of what Father Christmas means to some people. But one of the key things that came out of it is it's not just about those who perform Father Christmas doing those various things. It's actually about the extent to which, when they put on the costume, they feel authentically Father Christmas. So that's, do they embody the ideals of what we understand Father Christmas to be? And if you remember, there was a little bit in that paper about those who have their own big grey bushy beards earn more money as Father Christmas. So embodying Father Christmas is an important part of that kind of work. So that's the sort of stuff we're talking about in terms of the body. But then we also moved on to consider, well, not everybody's body, sorry, my glasses are, not everybody's body is the same at work, and some people's bodies are more valued than others, and some people have to do much more work in terms of managing their body. So there are gendered implications of that. So if we look back at the Warhurst study, there was the example of a woman being sent home from working in a supermarket because she hadn't shaved her legs, which is not an expectation that male workers were subject to. Or, for example, there may be expectations to manage a body in a certain way, whether or not having tattoos, that could have religious and ethnic implications. We're going to look at disability as a separate topic, but obviously the two lectures are aligned, as you can imagine. So I really want you to think critically about the body. What do we mean when we talk about the body? No, we mean literally the kind of squishy, this thing is our body. But what does that mean in the workplace? We all use our body at work, whether or not we're a cleaner, working in a bar, working in retail, or an architect, any of those kind of jobs. We're all using our body all the time. So what does that mean at work? And I would encourage you to look at the literature if you were to answer a question on this and think critically. And the big question really is, what is missing from both the literature and human resource management policies? And the body is largely missing from a lot of that. So I hope you enjoyed the lecture. Those of you who are able to attend, I think it's an interesting topic. It's a really growing topic. It's under-researched. So it's an area that you can get stuck into and think about where you might want to take that further, if any of you were thinking about doing a postgraduate study. And if you have any questions, get in touch. Bye.